Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Drooms webinar. My name's Rosanna, reporting live from lockdown.
And I'm Michelle. Hi, nice to meet you. Well, I haven't seen such a large crowd for weeks.
Okay, before we get started, a couple of housekeeping rules. Please mute your mics. At the end of our session, we'll allocate 10 minutes for questions. Please use the tool, so post your questions into the platform and I'll pick them up and answer them together with Michelle at the end. So let's dive straight into our topic of today. How can we boost efficiency in home office with Drooms Data Room? Well, the reality is that there's no real difference between Drooms at home and Drooms in the office. So that's the good news. The simple accessibility to our platform is key. All you need is an internet connection. The only difference that we currently have really is that we were suddenly entirely alone at home. In that case, it's important that you're using a good data room and that you have customer support. So at Drooms, we focus on 4 pillars to offer that to our clients. And that's security, simplicity, speed, and service. The focus today of our webinar, however, will be to show you the capabilities of the Drooms data room, understand how to delegate via the platform, so cutting out emails, cutting out calls, how you can monitor the progress and have a full audit trail, basically creating full transparency around your deal. In case you're wondering, I'm Rosanna, MD of Drooms in UK and Ireland, and I'm accompanied today by my colleague Michelle, who's one of our project managers. She's an absolute pro on the platform. She's setting up projects on a daily basis for our clients and supporting them, and she will guide us through the next section of this webinar.
Great, all right. So in the next 10 minutes, we're going to focus on the administrative tasks and how to structure and set up your data room. Afterwards, we're going to have a look at the user perspective. But first things first, we're going to log in and access the relevant data room, which in this case is this one over here. For the ones that are new to Drooms, a quick introduction. So on the left-hand side, we have a little cockpit with all the modules available. Right now, we are in our index structure and we want to start straight away with uploading some content. I prepared some files and folder already on my desktop. So I'm easily just highlighting them and then dragging and dropping them into my index structure. As I'm preparing the content right now, I only want the administrators to be able to access it.
Okay, so here we're seeing a first security element, and that's down at the bottom. You can see the upload button is disabled, so it's grayed out. This is really to protect you and control. So if Michelle doesn't consciously select the permissions, the upload is disabled. I mean, you're in home office, the kids could be screaming, it could be wine o'clock. So we really want to make sure you don't do a permissioning mistake.
Exactly, here we go. Now the upload is ongoing and is currently loading. You can see a little green pop up stating that there's something going on. And we can actually see the upload ongoing straight away down here. And the folder structure of my server, my desktop, the one I selected is going to be replicated here. And we can see all the files and folders up here uploaded with the index number added. There's no time to lose. Let's just jump straight into the user section. We will start with setting up a property manager as we are preparing the documentation right now. So I'm going to click on the little plus. I'm going to create a new group, property manager. I'm going to add the email address. And as we have no other group right now, I cannot copy any permissions. We're just going to create a new group from scratch, create group. And if I just double click on it, we're ready. Here we go.
Okay, so at this point, you've created a property manager group. What can they see right now?
At the moment, nothing at all. As you can see here, we have a brief overview. 0 items are visible, printable, and downloadable. We have to set the permissions first. That's what we're going to do now. If we click here on set permissions, the system brings us back to the index structure where we can use the icons to assign the different kind of permissions. So I assume you're familiar with the different kind of permissions. So we've got the view rights, the little I here, then the printer, and the download rights that I'm currently enabling for the whole data room.
Okay, so I have a question. If I have one strictly confidential document within a folder, how can I make sure that that's hidden?
All right, I actually have an example here in my folder 1.1. Document number 5 is strictly confidential. So to make sure that no one can access it, I will just revoke the rights I'm going to revoke the download right, the printing right, and the viewing right. I can do that on a single file, but I could also do it on the whole folder level. So if I want to hide folder 1.1, I'm just going to revoke the rights here, and that's it. What is quite interesting, and I want to have a look at it for a second, is the little pen here. So basically, my property manager is based in my hometown, Stuttgart, and his documents are always so large that it always causes a problem when he sends them by email. And also, I receive so many emails, I really can't be bothered anymore. So what I want to do is I want to assign him content management rights so that he can upload his documentation straight into the right folder. But to make sure that he only uploads transaction relevant files, I'm going to grant him edit rights only with my final approval, which is this one here. I'm going to save everything in the end, and I'm going to close this here. And like this, we already completed our first delegation task. To continue the storyline, I would say let's just jump straight into the reporting. In the section here, literally everything and anything is tracked and logged. So we see a heat map here in the first place, and then we have some dashboards available. And if we scroll down, we have some selection of reports with granular data available.
Can you show us the most relevant report to track bidder movement?
Yeah, sure. That would actually be the user activity history, which is probably also our most popular report. All these reports can be exported into an Excel file, and all of them are going to be provided with the final archive that we're going to send to you once the due diligence is completed.
Okay, what we're also seeing down here, I can see, is the messaging history report. So if we just go back to the users right now, what we can also do via the platform is basically send a message to a whole user group. This is important if, for example, you're replacing a file or a document is updated and you need to push that message to the user group. It's basically like sending an email, just faster. And what's also great is that you could also send to multiple groups at once the same message. As mentioned before, everything is recorded in the data room and is therefore also part of the reporting.
Great. All right. I think we're already done with our administrative tasks. So I think we can jump into the user perspective. Generally speaking, it's the same look and feel, just stripped off the user section right here and the extended reporting that we just had a look at. So basically the platform adopts to the role of the user accessing. So we're going to jump back into our data room index structure.
Yeah, perfect. So let's start off with the index. So we can easily expand the entire folder structure with just one click. That already makes our lives actually pretty easy. And what we're looking at here is the standard due diligence index for real estate transactions. So this is something that at Drooms we provide to our clients, also to give them a starting point when they're structuring their data room. What we're seeing here is a combination of black and grayed out index points. This is a really simple color coding scheme that we adopt at Drooms. If it's black, it means that there's a document there ready to be reviewed. If it's gray, it's nothing more than a placeholder. If we now go back to the example that we talked about earlier with the property manager getting through simple permission settings the right to upload directly into a folder, then picture this: if you're an admin, you can just very simply at one glance when you log into the data room identify. If it's black, it means that they've uploaded the documents and you can start your review on it immediately. If it's gray, you know that they haven't and you can basically chase them to get on with the job.
All right, so the index is also the starting point of my due diligence. So this is the place where I will search for the data set that has been provided to me. We can search the entire data room via the index search bar up here. Drooms automatically applies optical character recognition to every document uploaded. So I'm going to search for the word report, and the system will show me a list of results. So I've got all the documents and files where I have report in the title, but also the ones where the word report appears in the content. I assume you all already work with really bad scans. So I've got a great example here, which is a PNG file, and the optical character recognition is going through the content and is showing me the results in the document highlighted in yellow. Imagine you're sitting in your garden and obviously you don't have two screens and a printer available. There are many other functionalities such as the split view, where you can compare two documents at the same time, or expand your view to have a full screen mode, which is very helpful too.
Okay, so here we have another interesting point. We're looking at a 204-page color documents. I'm going to point out also two vital elements here that will boost your efficiency. One is that we apply instant access technology at Drooms. So Michelle, if you can just go to page 99 here, for example,
Sure.
you'll see how the documents load immediately. This is really important to us. We don't want you to have any time lag when you're trying to review documents. That's the last thing you want when you're looking at a large data set. So the instant access technology applied is really key to working efficiently on the documents in the data room. A second point is that we have now added a translation functionality. We're the only data room that has an inbuilt translator so that you can translate the documents in the data room into another language. This is an in-house developed feature. It's very similar to a Google Translate based on machine learning, and it's there to really give you an understanding what this document's about. So if you're working on cross-border deals, for example, then this is really great news and a really good feature to have. Here we saw that we translated to 204-page documents in, I think, 10 seconds. So that's also just to highlight the speed element that we look for.
All right. Last but not least, I want to show you this little plus sign down here. You can create bookmarks, consider it as a note to yourself. You can highlight a section, add a comment and a color here. This is my comment. You save it and you have access to it at any time to review. In addition to that, we have a little queue available, which gives the user the possibility to pose a question. This is only available once the Q&A is active. And this already leads us to the next step, to the next point of our session, the Q&A module.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Q&A tool in a nutshell is used for the question and answer process in a deal. It's a transparent and fully auditable way to communicate between buyer and seller, so you can stop sending around Excel spreadsheets and instead funnel the information to the responsible on both sides via the Drooms data room. This is also where our dedicated customer service comes into play. So when you're ready to go live and kick off your Q&A process, then you would contact them and they'll share best practices, but also configure your workflow to make sure that you have the right workflow and configuration for your deal.
All right, absolutely. I think we should dive a bit into detail. So in the first step, we're going to build a workflow distinguishing between sell-side and buy-side participants. On the left-hand side, we have the questioner teams, where I will add now a selection team that will ultimately submit the questions, and then they will reach the Chinese wall and go to a distributor who will receive all the questions, will review them, and then forward them to different answer teams. So this is also another possibility for you to delegate tasks. You can add several answer teams, and they'll be in charge of answering the relevant questions. Afterwards, I'm going to add 2 levels of approval. They will review the answers and then send them back, crossing the Chinese wall again to the questioner side. And the questioner can then, if wished, add some follow-up questions, for example. But rather than making you watch me now configuring a whole workflow from scratch, I think it would make sense to jump into another data room where I've already built a standard configuration. So that's what I'm going to do now.
Okay, so I'll just highlight another point why it's so important to use the Q&A tool on the platform. And that's because, as we mentioned before, everything is recorded and tracked and then forms part of the reports, which can also be exported to Excel. At the end of the deal, you'll have a final, you'll have an archive with everything that was exchanged throughout the deal and all the reports. From Drooms, we also include a standard, a declaration of identity, and this will later be added to the SPA.
All right. So here we can see now a fully rolled out workflow. As an example, I have here on my left-hand side 3 different bidders, each of them with a selector. In this case scenario, I only have 1 person in the selection team. You can add multiple people. Just be aware of the fact that all these people also need to be part of the bidder team. So I've got my bidder number 1 and the selection of bidder number 1. I think the rest of the workflow is quite self-explaining, as we already looked at it a second ago. We have the distributor distributing the different questions to the answer teams. They're going to drop their answers, send them to a legal approval team, and then in the end, we have a final approval. Once you are part of the distribution team and at the same time part of the final approval, you can actually take over questions and reply to them straight away because you have the high authority. So you can skip all these steps here in between. Okay, I think this configuration looks quite great. So, but before we let the dogs out, I think we should set up some more details. So we're going to jump into step number 3, edit settings. So basically, if I click on my bidder number 1, I can set up a question limit. So I can stop the questioners from flooding me with questions. So I can decide how often, how many questions they're allowed to ask overall, per day, per month, or per week. And quite interesting as well, I can allow them to print and save attachments. So the logical conclusion is that all answer teams can also attach files to the Q&A, not only link index points, but also really attach new files that are going to be part of a folder called Q&A in the data room. When it comes to the answer teams, you can tick this little box here where it says may reassign questions to other answer teams. So you can allow them to move questions around the different answer teams. I think that's mainly it regarding the Q&A configuration. If you're happy, everything is fine, you're going to click on done. And then you're just going to activate the Q&A and that's it. Here we go.
Yeah, pretty simple and easy. So we're coming to the end of today's session. What we've covered is how you set up and structure your data room. We've looked at how to manage access rights. We've also looked at how to delegate responsibilities as well as keeping track and being in control. And finally, also had an extensive overview over the Q&A possibilities. We're limited by time today, but if you're intrigued and want to see more, please tune in again or contact us for a demonstration of our findings manager. For now, what I'll do is hand over basically to you guys to the floor for questions. I see that there is some in there, and start to answer. So I have a question here called, can bidders use the translation functionality or is this restricted to administrators? The translation, do you want to go ahead, Michelle?
Go ahead.
So the translation functionality is there for all the users in the data room. That means that it can be for administrators as well as for bidders. I hope that answers the question. I see this is the only one, so we were thinking that you could end up being shy, so we prepared a couple of questions that we'll go through, giving you some more time to think about some, but we chose the most relevant questions that we often get from our clients. So one thing, Michelle, how do I make sure that I'm notified once new documents have been uploaded by the property manager, for example, to make sure that I don't lose track?
Okay, so if you go here to the top right-hand side, we've got a notification section. This is where you can decide how often you would like to get notified by rooms. So you can choose never, once weekly, once daily, or immediately. In this case scenario, if you don't want to lose track, just select immediately, and that's it.
Perfect, thanks. I just saw one more question coming in. So, can we change the Q&A configuration during the deal?
There are some parts that you can adjust. Generally speaking, I do recommend to just reach out to the support team to see what's possible and to discuss the details, and then we're going to find a way.
Perfect.
All right.
So there's no more questions, so we'll just continue right now with what we have in place. Michelle, is there a limit of users or content that you can load up into the Drooms data room?
Not at all. You can invite as many users as you would like to. You can upload as much content as you have available on your servers. Basically, during the preparation phase, we're going to set a user limit just to make sure that we don't lose track, that we are informed once you want to invite the buy side. But that's it. Then there's no limit at all.
Okay, perfect.
I actually also have a question. I have a deal upcoming, and I'm new to Drooms. So I would like to get familiar and get to know the tool first before my project goes live. How do I do that? What can you offer me?
Okay, so if you're new to Drooms, or actually even an existing client to Drooms, and you have a deal coming up, then yes, please come and speak to us. What we do before the deal actually launches and goes live is that we offer our clients a free preparatory phase. So that means everyone on the sales side can really come to terms with the upload structures data room. You can make sure all the permissions are correct until you finally go live and open up to external parties. This is something that we'll tailor according to the requirements of the deal. It could be that you need a shorter preparatory phase or a longer. And yeah, as mentioned before, that's that we offer that free of charge.
That sounds great. Thanks.
Perfect. So, I see another question coming. What would you say is Droom's USP compared to other, other data rooms? So I hope that you saw a couple right here as we went through Droom's USPs. I would say one of the main things is really that we are developing a platform that has smart functionalities. So we're really looking into AI, machine learning, and making sure that we offer more value to our clients by really bringing in tools that make the workflows more efficient. So we're not trying to just basically have a data room where you can exchange data and manage it securely. We want it to really speed up whatever you're working on. As I mentioned before, we have a feature called the Findings Manager, which we'll do another session on, which is also another step in automating the process. I see actually quite a few questions coming in now. Translated docs might content-wise not be identical with the original text. So how do you handle this in the SPA? Okay, so I hope I'm understanding this question correctly. It's about the translated docs and how they wouldn't be identical to the original text. So as I mentioned, the translation functionality is based on machine learning, and it's really just to give you a gist, an idea of what the document is about. It's by no means a legal translation. So if you do then see the content is relevant to me, then you would basically send on the document and have a legal translation made. So let me just see. I have another two questions in one. What is the limit of unique users per project? Can you manage multiple projects in parallel under the same agreement? Okay, so let's start off with the first one. What is the limit of unique users per project? Michelle, do you want to dive into that? I think that's what we mentioned earlier.
Yes, exactly. So there's no user limit. You can invite as many users as you want to. During the preparation phase, you're going to work probably with your colleagues, maybe with your client and some other parties that are working together with you on the deal preparation. During this time, we're going to set a limit just to make sure that you're not going to invite the buy side. But once you're inviting the buy side, the different kind of bidders, there's no limit at all. You can set up several user groups. You can have multiple users in the same group and as many as you would like to have.
Okay, so the second question, can you manage multiple projects in parallel under the same agreement? It really depends on the setup of your deal and obviously who the invoicing party is at the end. So often the advisor would come to us, but ultimately we're engaging with the client on the contractual base. But if you want to use Drooms for multiple deals under one agreement, we're more than happy to look into that and find an agreement that meets your requirements. So please reach out to us to have a further discussion. Michelle, can you just go back to the landing page 1 second to show how you can have multiple projects? So this is maybe a good example of how you can have different projects under your login. So you log in once and then you have access to all the individual environments. So you can have different projects running in parallel and access them very easily. Then we would just have to see how we can find the agreement that suits the purpose of what you require.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think those are the questions that have been coming in. I have another question that I would like to put forward to Michelle. Can I add T&Cs of access to the data room?
Yeah, sure, of course. So let's just access my transaction example once again. If you go down here to your settings, on the top right-hand side, you can drag and drop into a PDF document, which are your T&Cs in this case, and the user has to accept it once when accessing the data room for the first time.
Perfect.
Cool, great.
Okay, so do you have any other questions, Michelle, maybe on your mind?
Basically, what happens if I have colleagues that are in Spain, they're interested in Drooms, they have a deal coming up, but it would be great if they could have further discussions in the native language. So do you have any Spanish speakers on board, or how would they work?
Absolutely. So we have project managers in all our international offices. So, okay, now we're restricted to the social distancing. But when that's lifted, then basically they're more than happy to come on site. We will always check what are the language requirements of your deal and assign native speakers, and also obviously the relevant project managers in the country to make sure they can train any parties. So not only the administrators, but also any user party. We showed you the example how you can delegate to property managers, asset managers, they could also, of course, need training, and we're happy to offer that.
That sounds really good. Really, really good.
So how can I reach customer support? That's something also. So do I call you? How do customers get in touch with you right now, especially with the whole remote working situation going on?
So you either call us on our hotline, or you just go to your data room, and then on the top right-hand side, we have a little question mark where you can go to the support section and drop us a message. Other than that, you can send an email to support@drooms.com, or on our website, we also have a chat available where you can reach out. So plenty of different options.
Great. I saw another question coming in. So can I batch download files, folders? What is required to do this?
Yeah, that is definitely possible. So if I go back to my data room, I can easily just right-click on the folder and then select batch download. Depending on the size, it might take some time, so we always recommend to select small batches, but generally speaking, just click on batch download and here you go. You've got all the content downloaded.
Perfect. There's another one coming in. Are the archives, deal closure data, USBs encrypted?
Yes, we can add encryption if wished. You can decide it once you order the archive if you would like the data to be encrypted or not.
Okay, so I'll give you the opportunity for one more question, Michelle, if you have anything, or while people bring something in.
People are really shy. The one important question no one ever asked is, where's the data actually stored? That's so important. No one wants to know.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a very good question. And maybe also to get back to where we differ as well from competitors. So we're a German company headquartered in Frankfurt. And that's also where we like to keep our data. We have a geo-redundant setup in Germany. That means we have 2 servers mirroring each other constantly in Frankfurt. And we have a third in Düsseldorf. So if there's a catastrophic event hitting Frankfurt, then we'd have a third one to kick in. That also is basically that so we also underlie EU data protection regulations. I think that's very important for the security setup. That's where we store our data. We also have a setup in Switzerland. If there's a particular requirement that a client would need to host their data in Switzerland, then we can offer the same setup there as well.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, so I have another question coming in. Can the system create a Q&A export for review?
Yeah, sure. If we just go back into our active Q&A in the transaction data room, if we go to the Q&A section here, you can create an export here on the top right-hand side with all the available questions, and then you just review it with the answers and all other details. It's going to be exported into an Excel sheet.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we went through the questions that the visitors had today. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us on this webinar and go through how you can boost efficiency in home office with Drooms. We hope you have a great rest of the day and tune into the next webinar, or if not, otherwise feel free to contact us. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Okay, now we have to see how we get out of this, Michelle.